Hello, this is a new car for us here on the channel. We already have one daughter that has the 2017 Elantra videos that you'll find on the channel, and then another one of our daughters just bought her first car. This is a 2015 Mazda CX-5 Sport, and so it's got about 125,000 miles on it. We don't know a lot about the maintenance history, so we are going to do an oil change. We're going to do a transmission fluid change, and because it has 125,000 miles and we doubt if it's ever had the transmission filter changed, we're going to do that. That's a lot more extra work than just changing the transmission fluid, so we're going to show you how to do that. And then we are also going to change out the coolant, so we'll do that, and both the engine air filter and the cabin air filter. And we will also rotate the tires while we have it up on jack stands and off the ground. So we're gonna do all of those things on this, what we're gonna call its first service. These are good things to do when you buy a used car and you just have no idea what's been done to it and probably suspect that not enough has been done. So we're gonna go ahead and do all that, and you'll be able to come along the journey with us. You can look in the video description for links to tools and products that are either on Amazon or available at the Mazda store. And I'll also put, since this will be a longer video, I'll put details in the description if you want to skip ahead. All right, so just a note about the video. So when I do a lot of work to a car, I kind of systematically plan out how to do things, and so it doesn't work out where you say just do the transmission fluid and then you just do the coolant. Sometimes you're going back and forth. An example would be the tire rotation. So you're gonna loosen your lug nuts on the ground, then you're gonna jack it up, and then you can rotate the tires and all that, but you can't complete that tire rotation until the car's back on the ground. So when you're doing multiple things, those are spread out. So, you know, loosening the lug nuts for the tires was the first thing I did, but torquing them down was the last thing I did. And in between that time, I jacked the car up, I changed the oil, I changed the transmission fluid, I changed the coolant. And so to make more sense for you watching the video, I'm gonna edit it in a way that all those things are together instead of spread out, so that you'll kind of be able to follow a job all the way through. And so that's why you might notice, oh, he's wearing a different shirt than he was in that other one, because I might have done them on different days. And so I just wanted to let you know, you might notice that when you're watching the video. All right, so on YouTube, I was not able to find any good videos on how to jack up this car. And in the owner's manual, all they show you is where the pinch welds are, which is the same as every car in this general area. Once we get the car jacked up, I'll get you a better view, because we'll be able to film it better because the car will be up off the ground. But what we're doing first is I have found what I'm going to use as a jack point on the front. So I have my floor jack over here coming in from the front. I would have liked to have put it in from the side. Problem is, if you do that, then you can't get your jack stand where it needs to go. So I wanted to come in from the front. So we're going to jack up the front. We're going to get the front jack stands on both sides in place. Then we will jack up the back, put both jack stands in place, and when I'm done jacking the car up, the idea is to have all 4 jack stands in place, these two just like it on the other side, and then also have 2 floor jacks, this one and one that you'll see when I get the back done. Get them where they're holding the car up as a safety, but also out of the way of where you're going to be working. And so we may have to figure some of that out as we go. But I'll show you some really good pictures, point out things, so that when you try to do this, you don't have to wonder how I did it or what I used. So just wanted to let you know kind of the plan. So we'll check back in with you in a minute. Okay, so unfortunately, I might find it later, but I wasn't able, with the car on the ground, to find a good point in the middle of the front. So I picked a point that was a little off center. So when I jacked this side up to get this jack under, this jack stand under, I noticed the other side wasn't up far enough. So I had to get my second floor jack over here on this side to catch this other point. So now they're both jacking up the front. So now I'm gonna let it down gently on these jack stands. Okay. So now at this point right now that we're at, the weight of the front is on the jack stands. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put this floor jack down quite a bit, because when I jack up the back, it's gonna lift the car up in the back and this front is gonna drop a little bit. So that's why you wanna give yourself a little room. You don't wanna just barely get your front tire off the ground unless all you're doing is changing that one tire. I wanna get these a little bit more off the ground so that I can work under there a little bit easier. All right, so in the back, we found a center point. So coming up under the back here, got your, you can tell where the jack is right in the middle of that second support bar. Not this first one with the suspension, but just past that. It's right in the middle. So we were able to jack that up and then put the jack stands in their place. The spot to put your jack stand is very easy because it's a really long section. So you have this outer part that's plastic right here. This is all, you know, plastic from here to here. But, you know, by this back tire, there's this range right here in between my fingers on the inside rail that is dug out where you can feel the metal. That's where your jack goes. And then same thing on the other side. And then for the front, it's the same thing. You've got the plastic on the outside here, but then on the inside, you have this range from right, see how it's flat here and then it's kind of dug out and it shows the metal starting there and it ends right here. So as long as your jack stand is in that range, you're in good shape. So I just went in the middle. Okay, the jack points I used in the front, I wasn't able to put the floor jack in from the side because it would have interfered with me getting the jack stand in place. So I had to come in from the front. But now that I have it done and I had to pull the floor jack, and so I don't want it in my way in the front. So now that the jack stand is in place for this job, I'm gonna remove this wheel. And then that will allow me to put this floor jack in from the side while I'm working as a safety backup. All right, so you're looking at the passenger side front tire. We took the wheel off so we could get the floor jack out of our way while we work. So we already had our jack stands in place. Now the floor jack is the safety to just kind of hold the car in case we have a failure of a jack stand. So we're gonna show you where it's at, what we use. So there's one of these spots on each side. So you have this, here's your, you know, your brake and everything from your wheel. So you have this metal support coming in right here. And you have all this. And so that kind of gives you a reference for where this jack is at. So that kind of gives you some things. I didn't want to trust, it would have been more convenient if I could have put it in the middle of the vehicle, but that's where those perforated holes are. I didn't want a chance ruining that. I don't know how tough that is, so I chose to do it here from the front. I jacked it up from the front with one floor jack on this side, and then you see the other side over there that's not covered by the floor jack. You can see what it looks like on the other side. So you can tell where the floor jack is at. And then we put that floor jack from the other side we used on the back to hold the back up. So I do want to point out that there was nothing in the manual saying anything about an approved floor jack point, nothing at all. So this is just what I found when I climbed under and I used. I'm not saying that this is the right way. It just to me looked like a solid point. So that's why I picked it. So you may have better ideas in the comments. This worked for me. So we got it up on floor jacks, and so it's on 4 jack stands and 2 floor jacks. 1 floor jack is a safety in the front, 1 in the back. Alright, so taking it off the jack stands in reverse order. So I'm gonna jack this up just a little bit, just enough to be able to release my jack stands in the back. I'm going to very slowly come down with this back end. I don't want my front end to shift too much. So I'm unscrewing this handle very slowly. There we go. Now it's coming down slow. Just going to let it come down really slow. Not doing any sudden movements. Now I'm going to unscrew it some more. All the way. Okay, back's on the ground. Gonna do the same thing with the front. We're gonna find out if we need that second floor jack or if I can handle it with the 1. Okay. I jack it up right here. I know I can get this floor jack off, but could I get the other one without putting the other floor jack over there on the other side? Because remember, I didn't have a middle jack point. I still got too much pressure over there. I think instead I may just do the saddle on this side on this rear jack point real quick. That should do it. I'm gonna let this down. I'm gonna take my other floor jack down and do it slowly. This one's holding up the whole car front. Let it come down some and get my tarp out of the way. Alright. Down off the jack stands. Alright, so the first thing we need to do before we figure out how to jack up the vehicle and everything is, while the weight of the car is on the ground, we want to loosen all the lug nuts, because it's very hard to do when the car is lifted. So you're going to need some sort of a socket set that's made for lug nuts, because they're typically deeper. So this one particular vehicle takes a 21mm socket, and then it comes with something like this. So this goes in one end, and then this is a extendable ratchet that'll go in that way. so I can extend it out to get more torque. And so all I'm doing, I'm just breaking them free. So I'm just kind of cracking them open like that, so that when we decide we're ready to rotate tires, it's easy for me. And then what I do is I usually go in a counterclockwise and skip every other one. So that's just kind of how I do it. So now we're just gonna go around the rest of the car and do that on all 4 wheels. And then our next step after that will be to get the car off the ground on jack stands. So the tire rotation on this vehicle is that the front tires go to the back on the same side, so this will end up here. And then the back tires go to the front on the opposite side. And that's why, even though it's a real pain, it's why the only real right way to do this stuff is to put your car on all 4 jack stands. So you can't just jack up one side at a time, because you got to crisscross the back to the front. So we're going to go ahead and remove this wheel. We're going to get our floor jack where it's supposed to be, and then I'm going to proceed to inspect the tires, make sure they're all good, and I'm going to go ahead and roll them over to their new position, but leave them off of the vehicle so that we can get better camera shots under the car with the wheels out of the way and all that. So they're already loose. Let's see. Put my lug nuts by my jack stands to keep track of it. Kind of looking it over, got some real tiny rocks, but nothing big. I might pull that one out with a screwdriver. I picked some of the larger ones out with the screwdriver. Just kind of inspect, make sure it doesn't have any bubbles. If it has any bubbles, that means it's dangerous, needs to be probably replaced. So while I have them off, I might do some cleaning on these things as well. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put our floor jack back. Okay, this step is optional, but when I go to the trouble of taking the wheels off, I use some brake parts cleaner, and I just spray the brakes just to kind of get this whole area clean. And this stuff just evaporates, and then so it doesn't take that long to dry. But this is where your lug nuts go on. This is called your hub. And sometimes, occasionally, see it's already almost dry. Occasionally you can have a wheel stick to the hub right here. And so what I like to do when I get a car, I only have to do this one time in the life of the car, is get some of this copper anti-seize brake lube. And it's got a brush in there. And we're gonna brush it in between. You can tell where the wheel is contacting the hub by the shape right here. And we're just gonna paint some of that on in there like that. And then what that'll do for the life of the vehicle, it'll keep that wheel from sticking to the hubs. Okay, you're definitely gonna want some disposable gloves on for this step, because this stuff is nasty. I'm also gonna grab a rag. It's not the type of stuff that's probably going to come off of anything it touches, so it's not the easiest thing to work with. It's pretty messy. Again, links to all this stuff will be in the description of the video. Everything that I use. So we just want to kind of get rid of this glob that's on there right now by kind of spreading it out. And I want to stay away from my bolts. I don't want to get it on my threads. So basically I'm just getting it in the general region in between the threads to give it enough that over time it's not going to allow that wheel to stick to the hub. I've always done this and never had a wheel stick to the hub. And then about a month ago, a neighbor asked me to help him change a flat tire. And for the first time in my life, I found a wheel that was stuck to a hub. And it was a real pain. We had to beat the wheel with a rubber mallet to get it to loosen up. So you saw that I dripped some on that box. That's why I had that cardboard down. This stuff's a mess, so I always have something underneath. All right, so with the car lifted up, we're going to continue our tire rotation. We're going to just put the wheel on there snug. Always want to hand tighten these bolts at the beginning. So I just start one and then kind of go every other. Try to get 3 or 4 turns on there. Okay. Now we're not torquing them down in the air. We're just snugging it up. So we're just gonna kind of slowly get these on there. Enough so that when we end up setting the car down, that it's got enough snugness to not hurt anything. When we get all 4 of them on, and then once it's on the ground, then we come back with our torque wrench and torque the lug nuts down to the desired torque, which I'll share with you when we do that step. So remember, one job that we had in progress that we're waiting to finish until this step was the torquing of the lug nuts on my wheels. So on again, Mazda gives a range on the lug nuts. They give a torque lug nut range of 80 to 108 pound-feet of torque. That's a large range. It's a 28 pound-feet range. So I went right in the middle at 94 pound-feet. So that's what we're doing, right in the middle of their range. So we're gonna just do this in the star pattern. So I go till it clicks. Okay. All right, that's this wheel. Same thing on all 4 wheels. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and that will conclude our tire rotation because we already inflated ours to 34 PSI. If you wonder about your model, all vehicles have this inside the door. There's this sticker right here. So on this sticker, it'll say front tire 34 PSI, rear tire 34 PSI, spare tire 60 PSI. I always recommend going by this. Never go by what's on your tire. It'll be way too high. So I always go by the door, and that's what's recommended by the manufacturer. So anyway, we're gonna finish these 3 and we'll be done with the tire rotation. Okay, so while we have all the wheels off, they're filthy. So we're starting off with just a bucket of soapy water. We're using a hard bristle brush while the bucket's clean. I figure it'll take one bucket per wheel because this is going to get nasty. This is a hard bristle brush. I just dip it in the soapy water, go around the black part so that we can put some tire shine on there when we're done, and the rubber will be soft. So start off with that, and then we just kind of hose that off, and you can see that this is a project. This, again, 125,000 miles. These wheels have never been cleaned. We washed the car already and got a little bit of the brake dust off, but we've got a bunch in these crevices. And then while we have it off, we're also gonna do the backside, so you can see how that looks. We're gonna go ahead and clean all that up. So really we're just using soapy water, a brush, and a toothbrush. Okay, so this is what they look like before. You can see all the road grime, and this is after washing the car, but a lot of road grime in there in the center and everything. And the tires themselves haven't been cleaned. And then after, this is what it looks like. Got all the crevices there. So we used a toothbrush to get down in here and all the way down in there. And then I said for the black part, the outside of the tire, use this hard bristle brush like this. And then to start off with, just seeing how dirty all that is, I just start off with the regular car wash sponge and go over everything, all the silver part. I use a lug nut cleaner, even though there's no lug nut on there. I still used it to start cleaning that. And so then kind of do that first and then finish it off with the toothbrush, and looks great. So the reason you do the black, you know, when it dries, all you do is brush it with some light brush, it's not going to get everything off. But if you use a hard bristle brush on the black, it really gets it clean. So then if you want to use a product to make the tire look good, it'll look nice. So that's how we clean those wheels up. All right, so once the wheels are clean, we go ahead and use this 3M Tire Restore little applicator pad and just rub it on there. I like this because it makes them look clean, but it's not a heavy gloss when it dries, and it doesn't leave nasty residue. So I've tried a lot of tire products over the years, and this one's my favorite. So they all look wet when they go on, but they have a lot of differences once they start to dry. And this is just a spray. It's not like a heavy gel or something like that. Then I just kind of keep wiping it with the applicator pad so that it's not real heavy. Okay, and that's it. They look so much better. Alright, so we're going to do the oil change first. What we've done is we've let the car run. We let the oil get up to a decent temperature. We're going to go ahead and take our cap off at the top and just let it kind of sit there. That's to help airflow when we take the oil filter and drain plug off from the bottom. Lets the air run out. It's going to kind of loosen up the dipstick as well. This is going to be a similar procedure for both engines, but this is the Sport model, the 2015 Mazda CX-5 Sport. That means it has the 2-liter, and I believe it's 4.4 quarts of oil, but I'll confirm that. And so what we're going to do first is go under and loosen our drain bolt. So what we have here, we have a 3/8 inch ratchet, This is a 8mm hex socket that fits on a 3/8 drive. I'll put links to everything in the description that you need. This is our wrench we're going to use to get the oil filter off. It's a very tiny oil filter. Look how little that is. So we'll get to that in a minute. So right now we're going to do that. We also have our new crush washer. This is going to go on our drain bolt. You need a new one of these each time you do it. Links will be in the description. So we'll remove the old crush washer, put on the new one. We'll show you all that stuff when we're under there. So first thing I'm going to do is get the drain bolt off and get that in the let the oil drain out into my setup here with my oil pan. Well, all the videos I watched said this was an 8mm drain bolt, but it's not. It's a regular socket, so I need to figure out what size it is. Okay, so back under the car, here's the oil filter. Here's the drain plug. Yours might take that 8mm socket that I told you about, because all the videos I saw. Someone might have replaced this. You know, it's 9 years old. So this is a 16mm that I have, but that may not be what you have. But it doesn't take long to figure it out. So I'm gonna bust that loose, and I'm going to drain the oil, and then I'm going to do the filter. So we're gonna get started with that. This will be kind of messy. So as I get that drain plug loose, the oil is gonna start to spill. So I have to make sure I got my pan in place. Okay, so normally you'd take this bolt off and the oil's gonna probably spew out this way quite a bit and probably hit my floor jack. If I didn't have my floor jack there, I would simply move my oil catch pan back. But because that's in the way, I think I'm gonna use this little green Forma funnel that I have. It's kind of a bendable piece of silicone or something. So I'm gonna kind of put it where if it goes too far back, it's gonna guide it in my pan there. So even though it's gonna block your view, all I'm doing is loosening this bolt, okay? So you're not really missing anything. I'm gonna loosen that bolt and try to get the oil to stay in a reasonable radius of where I'm working at. So what I do is I kind of push in on the bolt when I think it's about done. Now that I think it's done, I'm going to try to get out of the way. It's a good thing we had that little funnel, or it would have definitely shot over onto our floor jack. All right, so we're gonna let that drain a little bit. I'm gonna get my oil filter wrench here in a second and start working on that. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and loosen up this little oil filter. So I got my wrench. Not sure if I'm gonna be able to get this one in there. I think I can right there. Okay. All right. Got it loose. Should be able to do it by hand now. Just kind of spin it. Okay. next time I will get my floor jack in a little different spot. All right, so this was our drain plug. This is the old crush washer. You always want to make sure you can get that off. We had to kind of unthread this to get it to come off. It was stuck on there just a little bit. So you always want to throw that away. Then we'll grab our new crush washer. Have that ready to go for when we are ready to put everything back. Now I want to get my oil filter ready real quick. Okay, so the capacity is 4.4 quarts for this 2-liter engine. So I'm going to do a couple things. I put the 0.4 in here. I like this picture so I can get exact. So I can do a 0.4 first, then I can do 2 quarts and then 2 quarts, and that'll be 4.4. So I'm going to put my finger in the clean oil, and I'm going to wipe it on this black O-ring to kind of get it ready. So I get some of that on there. All right. Now I'm going to take, you don't have to do this, I'm going to pre-fill this filter with a little oil. But notice I'm counting this oil in my total. So 4.4 quarts, and that counts whatever I put in there. So you can either pre-fill it or not pre-fill it. Okay, so got our new crush washer on there. All right. And then we're going to grab our rag, and up here where the oil filter goes, we're just going to wipe that surface, make sure that there's no rubber ring on there, and there's not. So we want to make sure the O-ring from the previous filter didn't leave anything up there, and it did not. So we have a nice clean surface there now. Can you hand me that oil filter? Be careful, there's oil in it. We'll lift it straight up out of there. Okay. So now we just want to put that on there. I just want to hand tighten that. No tools. All right, so our new filter's on. Now I'm going to grab a wrench and tighten this down. All right, so underneath, the drain bolt torque spec for the oil is between 23 and 30 foot-pounds. I was unable to use a torque wrench because that drain bolt on mine is a 16 millimeter socket size, and my sockets skip 16, so I didn't want to round it out with the 17, so I just used a box end wrench to do that. So I may look into purchasing a new drain bolt so that I can use that, but just wanted to give you the torque specs. So we got our oil filter, our drain bolt on. Now we're going to add 4.4 quarts of oil. I've got a funnel here. This can't push a funnel too far down in, so this one kind of has a wide opening, but it's got a short stem on it, so I thought it'd be good for this car to help me not spill oil. So there's the 0.4. Now we're gonna add 4 more quarts, so 2 sets of 2. All right, since this car has 125,000 miles on it, and I'm not real sure how well the engine oil has been taken care of, I'm gonna go ahead and add 1 quart of this Lucas high mileage oil stabilizer. Again, I'm not recommending that you do this, I'm just showing you what I'm doing. This stuff is very thick compared to oil, and I'll put a link in the description. You can kind of read the bottle. I'm not going to bore you with all that, but I'm going to see how it does. My other daughter's car that's getting close to 150,000 miles, going to be doing an oil change on that soon, and I'm going to try the same thing on it yet. All right. So we're going to use 1 quart of that, and then basically 3.4 quarts of this. I'm using, it's 0W20. I'm using the Mobile One Extended Performance High Mileage for engines with 75,000 miles or more. This one says it protects to 20,000 miles. I would never go that long between oil changes. Okay. We're gonna add in these 2 quarts. Can you grab a rag? I dripped some. All right, so we added the 0.4 quarts, and then we did 1 quart of regular oil along with 1 quart of this. So that made 2.4 quarts total. And then we're adding another 2 quarts to make it 4.4 quarts total. So just as a clarification, if you use a 1 quart of the Lucas product, or you have to substitute that for a quart of oil. You can't add it on top of it. So we did add 4.4 quarts. It's just that 3.4 quarts was the 0W20 and 1 quart was this stuff. Okay, so we got our funnel out of the way. We got our cap back on. We got our dipstick in there all the way. And then the oil change is done. So once we run it for a while, we'll end up checking the dipstick level. All right, now that the car has been started for several minutes and allowed to rest for several minutes, we're gonna check the oil level. Okay, so this dot is our low dot. This dot is our high dot, represents a quart. So we are just below the high dot. So we could probably add just a very small amount of oil. It's in the safe zone, but I like to get it up to that high dot. So I'm gonna add, I'm gonna say like somewhere between, I don't wanna be overfilled. So I'm gonna add like 0.1 to 0.15 quarts. And then that should do it. So I'm gonna do that real quick. All right, so after we added just like 0.1 quarts, you can't really see it maybe very well on the video, but it's all the way up to the full second dot now, so it's perfect. The reason I like to get it perfect is I wanna keep track, since this is a new car for us, a new used car, I wanna know if it's using any oil. So I won't know if it's using any oil if I don't know exactly where I started. So I start with a full on the dipstick, and I'll check it every so often until I'm comfortable knowing that it's not losing any oil. So. All right, so we're gonna change the automatic transmission fluid. Okay, you can see my ratchet. There's a nut right there that's holding on the dipstick for the transmission. All right, so what you see when you look down there is the 10mm bolt, and you'll see this plastic square, gray plastic sticking up. So you have to take the 10mm bolt out, and then you reach down and you grab this and you pull it out. And so this is your dipstick to your transmission. I've already wiped this one clean, and so we're just gonna set it aside. When I did the bolt, it of course didn't stick to my ratchet, so it fell down in there. So I got to go down next and take off the access panel from the bottom. And this is what I used. I would probably recommend investing in a longer ratchet extension. So this one looks like a 3-inch extension, and this is like probably a 6-inch extension. So you might want a longer one as well. So anyway, but it worked. All I did was left this in there, the ratchet, to loosen it. And once it was loose, since I didn't have a lot of room to work around in there, I took that off and just turned this by hand. So that's how I did it. Okay, so we got this access panel off. I turned the video into the car, so I'm going to show it to you now that we can both see it. This is the front of the car, driver's side, passenger side. So you're gonna have 8 10mm bolts. They're going to be here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're going to need a deep socket, and I have a 3-inch extension because this is recessed. You'd be coming in, you know, this would be up on the car, so you're coming in from the bottom. So this one and this one are hard to reach if you just had a regular small socket. So get you either some setup like this, or you can use a 10mm screwdriver if you want to come straight in like that. And then I just use this to save some time, but you don't have to have that. You can use a regular ratchet. And then in the back, you've got 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these plastic clips, which are just kind of a pain. So you gotta remember, this is a 2015 automobile, it's 2024. So these clips have been in there for 9 years, probably without ever being touched. So their idea of these clips, how they're supposed to work, theoretically, is that you would take a clip removal tool. I'll put links to everything in the description. You may not own something like this, but it's worth buying. Ideally, it's supposed to slip in here. You pop the little button out, and that allows the clip to come out and be reused, where you would put it back in and then hit the button in, and it expands this and holds it in there. Well, after 9 years of road grind, these wouldn't budge, so I had to get the clip removal tool, instead of in the right place, these wouldn't move. I had to get it under there and work on prying the whole thing out, which was kind of a pain. It took a little while to get those 6 clips out. So there's no way I can reuse these. So to save you money from going and buying these at an auto parts store or your dealer, I'm going to put a link in the description to a bag of these things for a cheap price. These clips work, so you're going to need 6 new ones. And I'll put a link to a bag. I think it's like a bag of 40 or something, but good deal on Amazon. So I'm going to put those in the description, so when I put it back, I'll be using only the new clips for the back 6. So let's get under the car. So reference on the passenger side, there was the oil right there. And then on the driver's side, this is our transmission pan right here. So this is your oil drain pan, that's your oil drain plug, your oil filter. This is your transmission pan. If you were just doing a drain and fill, you drain it right here, okay? So what we're gonna do, since we're changing this filter, since this car has 125,000 miles on it about, we're gonna go ahead and drop the pan. So we're gonna drain it first. Then we're gonna take out all these bolts around here to get the pan off, okay? So that's what we'll be doing, is taking that pan off. So our next step is to drain the oil. This takes that special 8mm hex socket. We'll put a link to that in the description because you're gonna need that. All right, so we have a 3/8 inch drive with the that 8mm hex, and we're gonna drain the transmission fluid. We have our pan underneath. We cracked that open with no problem. Little surprised it came off that easily. I don't know if this has ever been changed. No record of it, so who knows? All right. So I got the bolt in my hand. I'm gonna set it on top there. I'll let that drain. And what I did was I emptied this, had oil in it from before. I emptied it out into a container so that whatever's in here is how much automatic transmission fluid we get out. So we'll get some out from the pan. It's already almost empty. We're gonna get more out when we unloosen all these bolts and drop the pan. We'll get more out. And then when we take the filter out that's inside, we'll get more out. So all that liquid will go into that container, and then we'll measure it when we're done to find out how much came out. All right, so this is our transmission drain bolt. That's the 8mm socket goes in there. And so this is the bolt, and this is the crush washer that was on there. So it's always good to make sure you got that off, that it didn't stick. Okay, so I thought it was gonna be really hard to get this off because it was not moving and it's so thin. I was able to get a hold of the washer only from the side, and then I took my socket and I unscrewed it, and it just unscrewed barely and popped off my hand and fell. And that was enough to dislodge the washer. So I always throw the old ones away so I don't mix them up with the new ones. New crush washer. I've got all the crush washer sizes and links in the description. So now what I'm gonna do is go ahead and put this back, and the torque for this is between 23 and 30 foot-pounds. So this is a 3/8 inch torque wrench. So 27 foot-pounds is kind of in the middle. Okay, so I've got a rag, got my bolt with the new crush washer, got a wipe. Now I'm gonna put the bolt in real quick, and then my hand, do this by hand always, so you don't cross thread. So do it by hand. I'm gonna grab my torque wrench, and I'm gonna just kind of tighten it up. Okay, now I make contact. I got mine set at 27 foot-pounds. I'm waiting to hear the click. Okay, that's it. All right, so now we're dealing with this number of 10mm bolts, so they're really not that tight. I'm just loosening them up with this, and then I'm going to use the screwdriver to save some time. So there's 4. Yeah, we got 10 of these. Like I say, they're not on tight, and that's why you want to follow torque specs, because I have the torque specs to put these back, and I remember it being very low. I was surprised at how low the torque was on these smaller 10mm bolts. So I'll tell you what that is when I get there, because I'll have to look it up again. I don't remember. Wrote it all down. I'll put it all in the video description as well. Now I said 10. Let me count them, because this is a different shape here at the top. So I'm going to start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 10mm bolts. So I've loosened them all with a ratchet. I'm going to move over to my little ratchet screwdriver that I got. And I'm going to leave the 4 corners on while I do everything else real quick. Okay, so we took out 12 out of the 16 bolts. We left the 4 corner bolts in. And even the 4 corner bolts that we left in, we loosened them. So they were loose several threads. We loosened them a little bit more, because what we have to do is we have to break this gasket away. So we're gonna get this is I believe aluminum, and we don't wanna ruin that by hitting it with a steel hammer. So we're gonna use like a rubber mallet or something, and we're gonna hit it from the sides and try to break the seal. So that's what we're gonna do now. I'm gonna go get a rubber mallet and see what I can do there to break it free. Once we break it free, then the bolts are gonna hold it on loosely to keep it all from spilling on us when it breaks free. So once we can tell that this has broken free from the gasket material, then we will carefully remove the remaining 4 bolts and drop it and drain it into our pan. So I'm gonna go get my rubber mallet. All right, so we have a rubber mallet right here. All right, so after beating on this pan pretty good with the rubber mallet and thinking that it wasn't doing anything, I realized it had separated. So I just went around the whole pan making sure that it was separated so that when I start taking these bolts out in the corner, that I'm not gonna have any sticky spots, and I feel like we got it. So what I'm gonna do is get this pan ready here to hold all this stuff. I'm gonna take out two corners opposite first, and then I'm gonna take out this one and hold this end up while I slide this under, and then I'll take out the last one. So we'll see how that works, because remember, there's still some fluid in there, even though we drained it. We still got some fluid in there, so I want to not just let this thing fall. So I'm going to hold it up even though I've still got three corners. Okay, always wear safety glasses and stuff because I'm getting little, dust and stuff falling on my face. So now I only got two corners holding it up. So it's not like it's heavy or anything. You just don't want to get stuff spilled on you. See, that back end is loose. So now I've only got one corner holding it on. So I want to get this under it completely. Oh boy. Okay, I'm going to get this last one off. Okay. Just my hand is holding that pan up. I'm going to center my drain pan a little better underneath of it. I'm going to kind of come straight down with it. I'm going to set the pan in the pan. Okay, I got all sorts of drips coming from up top. So I'm going to slowly kind of turn this pan over so it spills out inside the pan. So that's how I'm doing it. And remember, it's still dripping from the top. So I got to remember that there's still stuff dripping, and I've got kind of a mess in this pan. So I think the easiest thing for me to do now that since I'm gonna have to put this pan somewhere, I'm just gonna keep the pan under it like that, because I can turn it over later. And this, if you can see this black plastic thing, that is our filter. So Mazda references it as a strainer, but I call them filters. So when we say we're changing the filter, it may be what they call the strainer. And I believe it's just held in by two bolts. This one right here, still the 10 millimeter. Okay, got that loose, but it's still in there. And then I believe there's one, my pan is in my way. So let me see if I can kind of go around it. I really want my drain pan under there still. Okay, it's right here. All you got to do is look at where the black plastic is, because everything else is a different color. So okay, really don't want that falling, but so go ahead and see if I can get that. Okay, here's that one. Trying to keep these bolts separate from other 10 millimeter bolts, even though they may be the same size. I'm just gonna keep them with the same item. So remember, once again, we're going to get 2 sources of more fluid. So I got the second bolt off, so I'm sistering held in with my hand. So when I pull this off, there's some fluid in the filter itself, and then there's going to be a hole where this is connected to the transmission, and I'm going to get quite a bit of fluid coming out of there. So here goes. Okay, there it is. Right here's that hole I was talking about. It's coming out this hole. So I'm going to take this pan and I'm going to start cleaning it up. So we got to clean this pan. We got to clean the gasket off this pan. But so that it's not as nasty to work on, I'm going to start off by just wiping it down. So this is the bottom of the pan. This right here is the magnet. Okay, the magnet grabs metal shavings. Look at that. That's all metal. So this is the metal that this magnet has grabbed. That's all metal. Alright, so I would only recommend like dropping a pan and going through all this trouble somewhere between every 90 and 120,000 miles, and then every 30,000 miles just doing a drain and fill, which is so much easier than what we're doing with this pan today. So we got our clean magnet ready to go. We've wiped this out with a rag. What I'm going to do is on this bottom side, since it's got oil everywhere, just going to kind of hit it with some brake clean real quick. Then I'm going to spray the inside of it. You don't have to do this. Wiping it down is just fine, but I'm going to go ahead and spray it with this just to get rid of the residue. Okay, so to remove the silicone gasket material, I'll put links in the description. Got this non-marring chisel set and this gasket remover spray. So we're going to use this to give us some assistance. We may also use some isopropyl alcohol, but we're definitely going to start with this. Okay, this is a Permatex foaming action gasket remover. It says on the directions to apply the gasket remover by dispensing pad to angle brush. Using the brush, spread the gasket remover over everything and allow it to sit for at least 15 minutes. But it's a little confusing because then it says it requires 25 to 30 minutes. Then after that, you come back and you use a non-marring tool. So what we're going to do is go ahead and figure out how to apply this. And we're going to, okay. And that's not very hard. You just push on this and it goes on. Make sure I'm on this, tarp. It's rotating on me. So I'm gonna look at the time. Hope I have enough because I need to do the same thing on the housing that's stuck to the car still. So this isn't all we have to do. We have to do it here and there. So on my land, I think it's already out. Kidding me. Oh my. So I would have needed to buy 3 of these to get this to work. Okay, so had I known that, this is where you learn from my mistakes. I could have done it a lot less and used this brush, you know, to kind of move it around. It probably didn't need to be on that thick to do something. So what I can do is kind of spread it around and then dip it in here and spread it on the top. But if I were doing this over again, you have the link in the description. This is the hardest part of this job, so you're not wasting money. I would buy 3 of these. And I would just put it on liberally and not worry about it. But anyway, we're gonna see what we can do with one by spreading it that way. And then I'm gonna get into the car. Then we're just, got our drain pan out of the way. Still got tarp under this in case we get occasional drips. Always wear glasses in case you get dripped on. You don't want it in your eyes. And we're just kind of painting around the seal with this brush. Again, wish I'd have bought 3 of these so I could have put it on super thick. I would not consider that a waste of money at all. That's how I wish I'd have been able to do it. But you learn from my mistakes, so we just kind of paint around. Okay, so a couple of updates since we turned the video off. We measured how much transmission fluid came out and we had 5 quarts come out. We had to leave for, it's been 2.5 hours. Came back and all this drained out onto the tarp when we were gone. Just dripped out. So, good thing we had a tarp down. So anyway, we're gonna clean that up and then we're gonna look at our gasket and see how hard it is to get that off. All right, so at this point, this stuff's been sitting here about 2 hours and 45 minutes. So we have this non-mooring chisel set. Just gonna kind of see how it goes. Okay. See, it definitely did something. Go ahead and get the easy stuff first. Looks like the stuff that's kind of on the edge of the inside coming off. Just don't want to use anything like a screwdriver, metal, stuff like that on here. You just scratch up the pan real bad, and then you probably get leaks when you put the new gasket on. So this is the time-consuming part of this project. So I'm gonna keep working. I'll check back in with you and kind of let you know how long it takes, but you don't need to watch a video about me scraping, but this is the hard part of this job right here. So I'll check back in with you in a minute. Alright, so just giving you a real quick updates as we go. This is 15 minutes in. Been very pleased so far. I know it's gonna take a while to get, you know, all the last details, but I've been using this tool and this tool so far. It's like a plastic razor blade that won't scratch anything. I'll put links to everything in the description. We'll check back in with you later. Alright, this is after 25 minutes. We squirted it with some just regular isopropyl alcohol, and now I'm using a nylon brush that I'm going to see if it'll get some stuff off of. Looks like it's getting some of it off. Really doing pretty well for 25 minutes. And then this brush set Also got a brass brush, which should be safe on aluminum. And they just kind of see what these do real quick. And we'll check back in with you. Alright, so 35 minutes in, we got it clean. That brass brush and the rubbing alcohol really helped. The only thing we can see is in the bolt holes. There's a little bit of pink, so got this little tool that I'm just kind of trying to knock the silicone out of those where the bolt holes are. Not real sure if that's necessary or not, but I'm gonna go around and kind of rub those edges. All right, 40 minutes in, we're done. We're gonna take some brake clean and do our surface where our silicone gasket will eventually go. Gonna spray it on this rag and wipe this top surface where my silicone's gonna end up going to make our new gasket. Gonna rub that on there. Give our gasket a good surface, be clean. And then we've got our magnet that's all clean. It's going to go back there. That is a strong magnet right there. So this is done. Until we're ready to put our gasket in, we're just going to set it aside. Now we're going to continue this job under there. So just to review, we let that gasket remover sit for, what was it, like 2 hours and 45 minutes or something? You want to let it sit at least 30 minutes, I think. We used these non-marring, a couple of sizes, to get a lot of it off. Then I saw what I could get with this plastic scraper. Then I put some rubbing alcohol on the, I also kind of dried it off with the rag, that foamy stuff, because I felt like it was slipping too much. So I kind of dried it off with the rag before I did all this, my time on these. And then I put some alcohol on it. Didn't really get much success with the nylon brush, but the brass brush did great. And it's supposed to be softer than aluminum, so it's supposed to be safe to do that by what I saw. So that really helped. So very pleased. So now we're going to see what conditions we're going to work with underneath. All right, so looking under here, I want you to see what I see. So remember all that spillage I told you happened? Look at all the transmission fluid coming out of everything. So we're gonna start by taking one of our rags and just kind of gently wiping that stuff off. And then we'll begin our process of wiping off the gaskets. All right, it's been 15 minutes so far. Just gonna give you a little update. So went around everything with the non-marring tool. All I've used so far is this one. But not bad in 15 minutes. Made some good progress. Some of the advantages of this one over the pan is that the surface is flat. There's not these crevices for the silicone to kind of get down in like we dealt with. So it's a very good start. I mean, we got probably 95 or more % of it off already. So now I think I'm gonna go with some rubbing alcohol and a brush and just skip to that step and see if I can finish it up. All right, in less than 25 minutes we are done. So it took us 45 minutes on the pan, 25 minutes on this. That's an hour and 10 minutes, and that's with me videoing. pausing. So what we did was we started off with the non-marring tool. We showed you that. Then I went straight to the isopropyl alcohol with the brass brush and finished it up, and it was, I mean, so easy. And it literally looks perfect. So then what I did was I took the brake clean, I sprayed it on a rag, and I just went over that surface with the brake clean, and so that it'll be clean as it can be when I put that silicone on there. So our next step is to make our new gasket and start putting this back together. All right, so now I'm just gonna put this new air filter on, the strainer that Mazda calls it. Again, I'll put all the part numbers and everything in the video description. And so what I'm gonna do is take some of this brand new fluid, and I'm just gonna kind of dip my finger in it and lubricate these two O-rings. Then I'm gonna pop it up in there, and then I'm gonna put in the two 10mm bolts, just like we did when it came out. So I'm gonna do that right now. Okay, so we got the filter in there. We just popped it through those O-rings, and then we hand put in started the bolts. So now we're just gonna kind of thread them in until they make contact. And then this one is right here. Close quarters down here to try and video it, but there's two bolts, two 10mm bolts. Okay, so I've got a torque wrench now set to 7 foot-pounds, a very small torque. Okay, and I'm gonna do the bottom one now. Okay, so that's done. The filter's on, so next our gasket. Alright, so we got our gasket surfaces clean. So now we're going to put on our new gasket. So this is the Mazda gasket. Gotta cut this to how thick I want it. I'm gonna cut it to right there. See how that goes. And use this to puncture this, I guess. This on. Okay. This is my first time doing this. So it's to do a continuous bead, but we obviously have holes to go around. So my plan is to make a continuous bead. I'm always going to take the inside route, and then once I get around, then I'll just go around and do the outside of the hole. That's what I'm going to do. I feel like I probably chose the right thickness. This is squeeze this tube hard. It's kind of hard on the wrist. It's taking quite a bit of pressure. And it's not really getting any easier. I just have to kind of take a break. So I think it's going on pretty controlled. I mean, it's not sloppy, and it's by doing a continuous bead, you shouldn't have leaks. Alright, here's the masterpiece. So, sloppy looking, but it's covered. It's not the easiest thing to use, that tube, but everything's covered. So now we're going to get up there. We're going to hand tighten this. Make sure before you do this that you have your magnet put back in and that you have your new filter installed, because you don't want to have to do this over. So what we're going to do is we did figure out the torque is 7 foot-pounds. So we did the inch-pound conversion. So we are going to be able to use the torque wrench later, but not right now. So right now, we're just going to make sure our surface is clean. So I'm going to look up there and make sure that our mating surface is clean. I see a little bit of transmission fluid that's dripped from the top and got on some of our edge. So I'm going to go around that outside edge again and wipe the flat surface plus what's kind of inside that edge. And I'm going to wipe that down one more time, and make sure our surface is dry. And now it's go time. So we're just going to line this up and start these bolts. I'm going to need my wife's help, so we'll video in a minute. Alright, so we got all the bolts on. It really wasn't like smearing out like I thought it would. And I could tell that just when you say finger tight, that's 16 bolts and you get a little resistance. So I ended up using, trying to find it under the car here to show you, but I ended up using this nut driver, not 10 millimeter nut driver, not to put any torque on it, but just to save some time, where I would kind of, start at the corners and then kind of go every other bolt and then go back and just tighten slightly until I felt like it was kind of up getting closer to the base, but not tight. So you can see the gray where it started to squish. So that's what we're looking for right now. So we're going to let it sit like this for 1 hour. Then we're going to come back in an hour and we're going to torque these down to 7 foot-pounds. And again, you want to just, instead of like starting with one bolt and making your way around, you want to do like the 4 corners, like do 2 opposite corners, then the other 2 corners, and then just kind of do opposing sides, and then, just kind of keep track of what you're doing and get all those down to 7 foot-pounds. So we're going to do that in 1 hour. Okay, our transmission pan has been sitting an hour. We're going to tighten every one of these bolts to 7 foot-pounds using our torque wrench. Okay, so we torqued all of them to 7 foot-pounds all the way around. So what I did was I kind of spaced them out by doing like this corner, and then the opposite corner, and then this corner, and then I picked like a middle bolt on the side, middle bolt on the side over here. middle bolt on the top, middle bolt on the bottom. And then after there were 2 middle bolts on the bottom. So anyway, just kind of spaced them out, make sure that I had a system. So now that we've done all that, we're going to let this sit. I'm thinking I'm going to let it sit for 24 hours because this is really the crux of the whole project, is not having any leaks. So you can see it spilling out the sides there. That's what we want. And we're going to let that sit for 24 hours. Then we're going to add 5 quarts of fluid, which is what we got out of it with the filter and everything that drained out. So we'll pick it up then. Okay, so just a quick review on the RTV silicone gasket for the transmission pan. There really aren't good directions as far as nothing mentioned about time and waiting in between steps. So here's what I found just Googling and doing some research. So when you first make your new gasket bead and you put it up against your transmission housing and you finger tighten all of your transmission pan bolts, you want to let that sit for 1 hour. You don't want it to sit for less than 1 hour. You don't want it to sit for more than 1 hour. So after an hour, you go out and you torque all those bolts down to 7 foot-pounds. Once you do that, you leave it dry. Leave it for a minimum of 24 hours. And so we've left ours for almost 38 hours. So the transmission has been dry for 38 hours before we put any fluid in it. But you do need to wait 24 hours. You do not want to have to redo that step, because if you have any leaks, you got to start over again. So it's definitely worth waiting. So I'm going to use this little, it's actually a laser tape measure, but I'm going to use it as a pointer to show you where that transmission bolt is. Okay, so going straight down from this air box, that's really the only way to see it. You can see where the red light is. That's where your bolt goes in for the transmission fill plug, and that is where we put our funnel. Okay, so this is a transmission funnel, very nice, bendable. I'm gonna use this. I'll put links in the description. I'll put that down in that bolt that I just showed you. When we emptied out our transmission fluid that came out the drain bolt, then we took our pan off and emptied that. We took our filter off and emptied that. We got 5 quarts out. So there is a way to put in some fluid, put your drain bolt back in, run the car, drive the car, come back, check it at operating temperature while it's hot. It's also say to do it while it's running and in park. And I'm sorry, but that's not safe to, while the car's running, to stick my hand down there and grab that dipstick while I got these fans right here. I'm not doing that. I don't know why they don't make transmission fluid levels more safe to check while the engine's hot and running, but I'm gonna just stick with what I know. 5 quarts came out. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna put 5 quarts in there. We're gonna go ahead and get our dipstick back in and our bolt back in, and we're done. It's gonna get worked in naturally while we drive the car and shift the gears, so I don't need to worry about any of that while I'm adding fluid or while it's sitting in the garage. So we're gonna just put the 5 quarts in, put the bolts back in, and then what I will do is I'll run the car while it's on jack stands so that I can check for leaks. So I will do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this. This funnel's nice because it's so bendable. I can see the hole down in there. So all I gotta do, put it in the hole it's in. And then you do have to hold this. You don't want this stuff spilling. I've already loosened all 5 of these caps. They did not have foil on them. They're just sealed, you know, where you actually break the cap free. So right now, this of course is the Mazda FZ. Mazda fluid type FZ. We got it at our local Mazda dealer. Whenever you're doing a job like this, I would always buy one more quart than you think you need and keep the receipt and just take back. It's easier to finish your job and get your refund when it's at your convenience than it is to have to go and buy something else and then come back and finish your job. So they wanted me to only sell me 4. They would try to argue with us, oh, you only need 4. And I said, well, I want 5. And so I'm glad we stuck with that, because we got 5 quarts out, so I need 5. If you end up with an extra quart, I would not save it. It's going to be a long time before you end up doing this again, and you never know if you're going to have that car. You don't want that old fluid sitting on the shelf for years. So go ahead and put that money back in your pocket and not keep unopened new fluids on things like this that you don't use very often. Now, if you have a partial quart, then definitely keep that. Once you've opened it, go ahead and keep it. Also, on this kind of bottle, they are designed to pour this way. You get a smoother pour doing it this way than turning the bottle the other way. Nice, clean, pretty blue fluid. Like a blue-green. Yeah, always hold on to your funnel. Not worth a nasty spill. This funnel also has a filter screen in the top of it to keep any contaminants out, which is nice. And it doesn't seem to slow down the flow. If you can get a shot in the top of that funnel showing that filter screen right there. So reading that about the RTV silicone needing to set, it's also kind of interesting. You know, the dealerships don't do that. I mean, if you were to take your car in and have them change your filter, you know they're not going to tell you to come back in 2 days. So it's kind of curious. Unless they have some sort of quick setting, you know, RTV silicone that sets up in a few minutes or something. But it'd be curious for a Mazda technician to comment, you know, how long do you guys let it sit, and do you have any problems with that? Because this is something I've never done before. I don't know. I'm just researching. I know it doesn't hurt to wait, so that's why I did it this way. I need to get a rag so that I can remove that funnel. So now our 5 quarts are added. So now we've got the fun part of trying to get that bolt back in. And I say fun part because when I reach my socket down in there to, I'm gonna set my funnel in the trash can for a minute and let it kind of empty out a little bit. Because when I took that bolt out, it dropped. Like when I loosened it, and it's not magnetic. I've tried magnetizing it, it won't work. So I can't get that bolt to stick to my socket. So yeah, it's just down in there. I'm just gonna have to do my best to I'm gonna dry the surface off. Now you can take this air box and stuff out of the way. That's what I see most people doing. If I can reach a bolt, I'd rather just just reach down in there. So some of it's just kind of looking and figuring out what's in your way. So I kind of got it wiped off. Hits my forearm. So I need to grab two things. Our dipstick and the bolt. So the dipstick goes in the big hole that we just put the funnel in to put our fluid in. That's where this one goes. And then our bolt is gonna go in a small hole to hold this in. So really I need to just put this bolt where I'm not gonna lose it. Keep it right there. I'm gonna this is made to grab your fingers right here. So I'm just gonna kind of use my light. Do my best. Okay, so I just kind of dropped it in there. So I really didn't get my hand down in there very far, but I was able to get that in there. So what I'm gonna do, since my wife is able to help me, I'm gonna have her watch from up here, and I'm gonna go under the car and see if I can put my hand up on top and get it in there and get it started. Once I get it started and I get a couple of threads, I can come back up top and get my socket wrench on it. So all I'm trying to do is get this in the hole and just barely hand turn. So I'm gonna give that a try from underneath. Okay, so I'm underneath the car and I can actually see this bolt right here. So I'm just gonna try to hold the light for you for the video, but I can't do that. Okay, so I kind of got a light lodged in there. I'm just gonna kind of reach my hand up here, and so I got it in the hole, but now I have to rotate it, which isn't the easiest from this angle. I say I'm in the hole. Can't really tell. Yeah, I can't get a good angle to push down and rotate that. Okay, I'm rotating it. I think it's working. Okay, yeah. Okay, so let me, from underneath here, let me kind of show you how easy it was from underneath. Okay, so underneath the car, so you look at, this is our, transmission pan that we did all the work on. So right on this gap here, this bolt, here's the dipstick, this little gray tab, and the bolt's right here, so you can see that. So it's easy to get that in and start that nut from down here. So now I can go back up top and use the ratchet and tighten that up. All right, so from up top, got my ratchet set up, 3/8 inch drive, 6-inch extension, 3-inch extensions, 10mm deep socket. Got it on there. Just don't think I can get. I think I'm gonna have to take my 3-inch drive off and do it by hand until it starts to get tight, because I have such a small range of movement on the ratchet that I can't really get it to tighten with the ratchet handle on there, if that makes sense, because there's not enough resistance. Okay, feel like I tightened it a little bit. Hopefully that will be enough for the ratchet to start to do its thing. They have a torque spec even on this bolt. I don't think that's necessary to use a torque wrench on this bolt. You just want it snug, you know, not over tight, but things are going to be in there for 30,000 miles until we do a drain and fill. So I don't want it over tightened, but I want it pretty snug. Your range of motion is so little, and I'm hoping that this ratchet isn't loosening it as it comes back. I can hear the ratchet sounds now, so I feel pretty good about that. Not really getting much resistance, but can tell it's in there. Definitely not over tightening it. It may seem like it because it's taken me a while, but I'm barely getting any movement each time I move the ratchet. Okay, that's very snug. That's good. When I feel like it's snug, that's not going anywhere. All right, our dipstick is back in. So for our purposes, other than running the car and checking for leaks, the actual work of the transmission fluid change is done. So we're gonna run the car. So it just so happens that while I'm doing this, I'm also doing a coolant change. And so I need to run the car to let my coolant get all the air out of the system. So I'm gonna let the car run while we do that. So just keep in mind, if you're doing multiple things at one time like I am, I did an oil change, coolant change, transmission change, you have to think through what you're doing in the order so that you don't start your car up when it doesn't have fluids in it. So we did the oil change first, completed that, started the car and everything, so that was fine because we still had all the other fluids in there. But while we were draining it, while we were letting the transmission pan sit and dry, I drained the coolant out to make use of that time. And so I can't start the car now to check the transmission fluid, so I don't have coolant in the car. So I need to wait till I add the coolant before I warm it up. So just think about when you're doing things, hey, I haven't done this yet. I have to do all this before I start it. And then also things like the tire rotation is spread out in between this job. So on the tire rotation, I have everything done but the final torquing of the lug nuts. So I wrote it down and I left my torque wrench sitting out ready to go for those lug nuts so I won't forget to torque them down. So when you got multiple things going, you just got to keep track so you make sure you finish everything. So we'll check back in with you in a little bit. Okay, so all that's left before we take this off of jack stands now is I'm going to crawl under the car. I'm going to look at the transmission pan, make sure I don't see any fluid seeping around that gasket area or anywhere. We didn't get any drops. And while I'm under there, I'm going to take this stuff with me so I don't have to keep getting up and down. So I've got all my new plastic clips ready to go, my 6 new clips along with all my bolts. And so I'm going to go under there with my wrench and my 10, I think that was my 10 millimeter socket, and I'm going to put all these back. And so I'm going to get that under panel back on there right now. All right, before we put this underbody panel back on, we're just going to go ahead and do a real quick wash. Alright, so my first order of business is to check out my seal on the transmission pan. Good news, I see no fluid, 0. Definitely don't rush that process of waiting and just letting it sit. this isn't something I ever want to have to do again. So the drain and fill would be easy. Drop in the pan and change the filter part. All right, so that's awesome news. Okay, so now we're gonna have to finagle this thing back in here. Yeah, there is no access panel for the transmission drain pan. So even if you were just doing a drain and fill, you would still have to take this off. Okay, so I'm just gonna start in the corner. Those 3 plastic clips kind of are helpful in this scenario of just trying to get it held up, because you just push them through the hole, wait till the base contacts, and then you push the button in and they're in. So that's kind of good because I need help holding this on. So they're gonna provide a quick, easy way of holding that on. So now I got 3 clips in and a bolt holding this side. Coming under the front of the car on the driver's side, trying to show you, come under, and there's this access panel right here with that screw. It's a Phillips head screw. I'm thinking this might be to access the drain plug for the coolant. We're gonna find out real quick together. This one screw, access panel slides out. Yes, it is. Try to get you a picture up in there with the light. You can see that white plastic knob right there. So we're gonna loosen that white plastic knob so coolant starts to drain out this hole. All right, so we're gonna drain our coolant. We're gonna go ahead and open up this cap right here. And what this will do, never do this when the engine is hot, by the way. The engine's not been ran all day. So we're gonna go ahead and let that cap just kind of rest on there so air can flow. I'm gonna come underneath where I took that access panel off. I've got a bucket here to catch coolant. And I got some pliers to grab this, let me show you. All right, let's see. So remember I showed you in that access panel, we're gonna unscrew this white bolt and it's gonna drain coolant out of there. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Okay, just barely grab it with the pliers and it loosened it up. So now what I'm gonna do is just start loosening until it starts leaking out. Okay, I'm just gonna let that go for a long time. So. All right. So we'll check back in with you later. Good if you can just have a big bucket there, because we should get out probably a little over a gallon, I'm guessing. Probably more than 1 gallon, less than 1.5 gallons. And then from up here on this particular vehicle, I would like to clean this reservoir tank. Again, this car has 125,000 miles on it about, and I don't think anything's ever really been done to it. So I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to see what's connected here. Okay, so I took this trim removal tool. Yours made this pop out, but this one, 9 years of sitting in there. So where this clamp, where this little bracket here goes in, I just put the clamp removal tool in between this and that, like that, just to separate it. And that's all I had to do, was just get something in there, just because it had probably gotten lodged in. I think it's meant to just pop out. So anyway, now that I did that, I'm able to lay this to the side and just pull this out. So that's what we're going to do. Pull that out because I want to empty this and I want to clean it. Okay, so it comes out like this. It's only got that much in it right now. All right, so we dumped that, and we're just going to clean that by putting some water inside and kind of shaking it out a little bit. Okay, so I was able to clean this really well. I just used regular soap and a brush and just cleaned the outside. Really put some like hot water on the inside, shook it up, drained it. And then I have trouble seeing this, so I went ahead and took a permanent marker and outlined the L for the low level, and I highlighted the line, and I marked over the F for the full. I highlighted that line because I just can't see it when it's down in there. And so I'm going to go ahead and put this back in. Okay, so we popped that back in there, back in those clips right there. Can see that a little bit. So that's clean. So we're just going to give this some more time. And I noticed that, even if you just lay the cap on, it really inhibits the flow. So I went ahead and remove the cap altogether to give that airflow so that it could drain a little faster. So it's going to let it continue to drain. Okay, our coolant is barely down to a drip. Like, it's several seconds in between the drops. So we're going to go ahead and tighten that white nut with our hand. You do not want to use a tool for that. So we're going to get under here. Always want to have eye protection on and everything. So we're just going to reach up in there and just start to tighten. All right, just hand tighten that, and it's good. All right, close quarters under here, but putting on our access panel where we had tightened up our coolant drain. Going ahead and sliding that on. So it kind of slides into place there. And then we line up our screw here. So that's our coolant access panel back on. All right, so this is one of those antifreeze coolant testers. This is the old coolant that we drained out. This right here. So this is what it had in it before. So yeah, get some of that coolant up in there. Okay. See this needle right here? I was distracted by the one at the top. There's a needle inside there. Let me get my hand out of the way. You can see it. So it says that the protection, okay, the blue is Fahrenheit and the orange is Celsius. So we're protected to 262 degrees Fahrenheit and 128 degrees Celsius. So that is probably pretty good stuff, actually, that we took out. The car having 125,000 miles, just wanted to kind of get it right, so I know that I don't really have to worry about it anymore. We're just gonna test the new stuff. So remember, this is already 50-50. We don't add any. We're using this Z-Rex Asian vehicle. It meets the same standards as the Mazda Coolant. Alright, so out of our new bottle, we squeeze in on that, put it in there, and then let it go and let it draw up the new fluid. Okay, so yeah, there is a difference. It's maxed out. So there is a difference. So we were down here with the other one. So instead of 262 degrees Fahrenheit, this surpasses 268, and instead of 128 degrees Celsius, it surpasses 131. So this does the max that it can possibly. It went beyond the reading of this device. So I'm impressed that this cheap little thing works. I used to have one of these many years ago. Don't know what happened to it. And last year sometime I was like, I'm gonna buy another one of those just so I can test it, and it is easy and it works. So anyway, we're going to do the coolant now. So just a word about that. So you can do it different ways. I invested in a tool for this job that I've used many times on all of our vehicles. And it is a Lisle, it's called a Lisle brand spill-free funnel, model 24680. I'm going to put a link in the description. It comes with this funnel. It comes with this yellow plug. You're going to see how we use all this. This goes down in there to keep it from leaking. It comes with a bag of goodies, different adapters, different size, everything. And so what you do is you figure out what works for your car. So this shape of a cap worked for ours, and this green adapter was the closest thing I could find. I was hoping for a perfectly secure fit, but we're gonna see if this is tight enough to keep any air in it. So what we're doing is we've already drained our fluid. We got a little over a gallon out, right at a gallon. So this with the O-ring, the rubber ring, goes down in there, sits like that. We take our cap that matched. The easiest way is to see if the cap fits with nothing before you waste your time trying to do it with something. So that cap fits. It's not as tight as I would like. So I'm hoping this works. See how I can jiggle that just a little bit? I'd feel better if it was, you know, immovable. So we'll see how this works. This is going to be designed to fit every one of those, no matter what color they are. This is going to make a tight fit in there. So I put that in there. We've already not only drained our fluid, but we've also put the cap back on so that I'm free now to add fluid and I'm not going to mess anything up. So the way we begin, I have one brand new bottle, and then I have another one that's got some in it. So I have one that has like maybe 1.2 quarts or something like that in it. So I'm going to use it first. It's the same kind, Z-Rex Asian vehicle, and I compared this to the Mazda one, and they both meet ASTM D3306, and they both contain the same major ingredients. The main ingredients: ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol and water. And so this one also has sodium benzenate, corrosion inhibitors, defoamers, dye, bittering agent. So anyway, the ethylene glycol, diethylene glycol, and the ASTM D3306 was the key information, and it didn't contain any of the chemicals that the owner's manual says to stay away from. So what we do is we just start pouring this in. The car is off right now because it doesn't have any coolant. The funnel design allows the car to accept that. All the bubbling up you see is air. Now, this did come with a cap. The cap can be useful, you know, if you want to put that over there and rest it while it's bubbling up so that it doesn't spill out. You don't want to put it on tight, but it can spill out. So that was like 1.2 quarts. We think we're going to need about 4. But the main thing about this, the reason I invested in a funnel, is the main challenge of the coolant is getting all the air out, and it's designed to help us do that. All right, so my wife was pointing out that I was losing a little fluid right here because, like I said, this ideally would be tight. So what I'm gonna do is kind of hold with a rag and not just let the rag sit there, but actually try and kind of squeeze and while I pour this in. So the way this works is it's gonna stop taking it in a little bit, and the fluid's gonna start coming up on the funnel, and it's gonna stay there. So I don't want it to come up beyond this line. I want it to be somewhere in the bottom of the funnel. The reason is most of that's gonna be discarded as old fluid, because when I start the car, it's going to start circulating, and there's some existing old fluid still in the system. So once I'm done with this job, I don't want to save what's in the funnel. It's going to ultimately be discarded. So I want to limit how much. It's not like it's still clean. It's mixed. So I'm just going to keep adding, trying to keep my pressure. Hopefully limit what we spill. I've had a couple of cars where this funnel fit perfect, and a couple where I couldn't quite get the right adapters. I don't know if there might be some adapters that maybe I could purchase. I need to maybe check in. Yeah, I'm leaking out. So I need to maybe check in with Lisle. Maybe name the cars that it didn't work for me. They didn't work or didn't fit tight on this or my 2017 Elantra. All right, so I'm gonna check my reservoir right now. Yeah, it's gonna be empty also. So I'm starting to think that, yeah, I mean, I think I've already used what I got out. It might have been a little low. I'm gonna go ahead and get a little funnel and a light, and I'm gonna fill up my reservoir to the full. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do that right now. So I'm gonna put this funnel in here. This is normally where you would add fluid anyway, where you would add if you were just a little low. So I'm gonna look in here, see if I can see my, remember I marked these up with the marker so I could hopefully see. I'm gonna go ahead and fill this up. This would normally automatically happen if our funnel was sealing right and we started the car. it would do this. This reservoir really doesn't hold that much. It's already almost there. Okay. Just gonna add just a little bit more. Looks like I'm almost to the full. To the full. Just barely below it. You need to put a hand on that gallon. Hold it for me. Okay. So I don't know if you can see that on video, but I'm to the full mark on the blue. So now I know I have fluid in there. So I know that's accounted for because that needs to be there. We'll check it again, of course, when we're done with this, because it could certainly need more. This makes me think with this that this isn't going to work, this funnel. So I'm going to bail on the way this funnel, the way this was supposed to work. If you had a good seal there, was you would let the fluid come up the funnel, and then you would start the car and just watch and have your antifreeze ready, so that if it started to suck in the fluid from the funnel, you could keep some in there so it didn't go dry. You would have a lot of bubbling effect of the car getting air out. But with it not sealing, instead of the bubbles coming up and out, I think it's just going to spill around the base. So it will happen naturally as the car drives. So the other way to do this is to just keep an eye on your reservoir levels. So I think what we're gonna do is just drive the car, start the car, and what we'll do now is I'm gonna go ahead and just put the cap back on. Yeah, I'm all the way full, and that's all the way full. So it's full except for we don't know how much air is in the system. So I have this pressurized now. My cap is on. I know that I've added in more than I took out, so I know I'm not any lower on coolant than I was before I did this job. And I'm going to start the car. I'm going to turn the heat all the way on. Heat max, no AC. And what you want is when the thermostat gets hot enough to turn the heat on, these cooling fans, there's two fans in this plastic shroud, a big cooling fan here, cooling fan there. But you can see those kick on. You'll hear them kick on when it gets hot enough. So we're just gonna start the car. So I'm gonna clean up for a second, get all my tools off, then we're gonna start it up. So while we got the hood up, we're gonna go ahead. This is where you add your windshield washer fluid. I have a full gallon here, and it's got a bug remover in it, but it doesn't have the Rain-X. So this treats a gallon, this Rain-X, but since this is full, I'm just gonna put a little bit of this in here. The rest of it I'll end up pouring into that gallon. And this is a cap that I can kind of turn over and undo. All right, so we're gonna start it up for the first time. One thing I'll point out about Mazda is that I don't really, it's fine if you know what it means, but you get this blue coolant light on every time you run the car, and that can make people think something's wrong. But all it really means is that your coolant's not up to temperature yet. So that could be helpful while we're doing this, because we'll know when the coolant reaches temperature. The heat on, full blast. Once the blue coolant light went off, I realized my fans still weren't on, so I switched this over to the defrost setting right here. and that kicked the fans on. So that's supposed to be drawing the coolant into everything else. So you got to watch, never stick your hands down in there, but those white fans in the front, there's two of them side by side, right in the front here. So you can see them rotating. And so the way the system works, if it had air in the system and it needed to pull more fluid to replace that air, it would pull it from our reservoir, which we filled up till the full line. So we can always look at the reservoir and see that we're still at the full line. So it hasn't taken any of that. So the reservoir is a safe way to deal with fluid, because the reservoir is not pressurized like this cap is going to be pressurized. You want to leave that on. The only time you ever take that cap off is when the system is cold. And I see that I put the cap off upside down, so when the system's cold, I'll take it off and put it on so that this reads out this direction. Not that it really matters, but I'll make it right. But if you needed to add coolant to a hot engine when it was not running, you could just be careful taking this cap off, and then you could add to here till it got to the full line. Put your cap back on, and because it's not pressurized like the others. So you can hear those fans kicking in. So what we'll do is, recognizing that this may not get all the air out, I still think that funnel did help getting air out as it got added, even though it didn't do what it was really supposed to do. But what we'll do is we'll check this after it's been driven, like when my daughter drives it for a day or two or three. I'll check the level, make sure that the coolant level is right, because with regular driving, it's going to work the air out of the system. So I think that's far enough for us to know that it's doing all right. It's been several minutes. Fans came on several times. Our reservoir level hasn't changed at all. No change at all in the reservoir. Our engine temperature has been up to speed for a long time now, so I'm going to shut the car off. All right, so just an update on the coolant. I think I used 4.2 quarts, but I spilled some. So if you wanted to try and save money, you could buy 1 gallon of this coolant. You could do the job and see where you ended up at by checking your reservoir after you drove it. And if it was a little low, you could go out and buy another gallon. This was $20 at the local O'Reilly's. So I already had a bottle left over from a previous job that had 1.1 quarts in it, and I still have 0.9 left. So I used 4.2 quarts, but like I said, I spilled some. And the reservoir doesn't have to be in the full, it just has to be above the low and below the full. So you could try 1 gallon, do that coolant job, and see if you needed to go out and buy another gallon. So just wanted to update you on how much I used. All right, so you can see how dirty this engine bay is. I don't even know if the camera will pick it up great, but it's pretty dirty in here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a quick cleaning of the engine bay. So this is a product I'm gonna use. I'm gonna put a link in the description. It is expensive, but it will last a very long time. So this is a P21S Total Auto Wash. Comes in this box. You're gonna need that, a couple of Walmart bags, and some microfiber towels, and that's it. This only takes a few minutes. So you want your engine at room temperature. You don't want to do this on a hot engine. So our engine is at room temperature. We want to cover our alternator. This is our alternator. You can usually tell alternators by, they all look similar. What we're trying to do is prevent that from getting saturated with water. So I'm going to take these Walmart bags and I'm just going to kind of shove them in that general area to cover completely the alternator. We're not using any high pressure wash. This is just to stop. That's enough to stop water from just dripping down. So one thing that I do, just because I do not want to mess up the car by leaving those plastic bags, I saved the box to this. And what I do is I set this box in my driver's seat before I do this. And so I can't get in that car and start it up without sitting on that box. So that's gonna remind me, do not leave that there. So any surface you want clean. So I like this clean too. I try not to overspray it on my paint, but I don't cover up this kind of paint because I'm gonna be hosing it off. So what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and get started. Start spraying on that part because I want it clean. Okay. You can just kind of look your engine bay over, see where you see the grime, the buildup. I had to start with this. That just gets a lot of the volume of water off. So then when you get your microfiber rag, it doesn't get as saturated with water so easily. So even though it does the work, it doesn't hurt to just quickly touch things with the rag. So quite an improvement there to from what it was before. I'll put links to everything in the description. Hope that's been helpful. All right, so this is the engine air filter on this 2015 Mazda CX-5 Sport. The engine air filter box is right here. This is the, I'll put links to this in the description. This is a Purelator 1. This is our new filter that's gonna go in. So if you'll come in here, you don't need any tools for this. They just have these little finger spring-loaded clamps. So we're gonna loosen those. And then in the other side, it's just got the plastic kind of fingers that go in a hole. So you just kind of jiggle jiggle it out of there, lift your existing air filter out like this. Pretty clean in there. If you have junk in there, you want to vacuum that out. So from the top, it looks pretty good. But when you look at the bottom, you can tell that it can use cleaned. Plus, you know, we just bought this car, so we're kind of getting everything right. Sometimes these look like there's no right or wrong way to put them in, but I always like to look and the numbers line up this way, so I'm going to put it in this way. I'm looking at the writing on the sides. So what we're going to do, we're going to lift this up. We're going to get this to lay in flat, just like that. Okay, so you've got these two plastic fingers that stick out. And then down there, you got this plastic loop here and one just like it here. And they have a hole underneath what you're seeing, where this finger has to go below what you see into a hole. So I want to kind of angle it. I want to get that in before I worry about my clips. So that's got to go in first. So that one's in. There's an electrical wire that makes it difficult to see. Trying to see, yep, okay. Right in here, I can see both. So I can see one clip there that it's in, one clip there that it's in. So now that those are in, just kind of push that way and take my finger and just lift those clips over. That's how quick and easy it is to do your engine air filter yourself. Probably save yourself $40 just by doing that. Hope that's been helpful. All right, so this is our cabin air filter. I'll put links in the description. So we're just gonna open up our new filter here. Okay. So we'll undo the glove compartment. I'll press in on the sides, drop it down. Right here, this white thing is our air filter, okay? Looks like it's got this tab where we kind of pull that tab up and grab it. So we're gonna make sure we kind of make note of the oil. Oh man, it's filthy. I don't think it's ever been changed. That's so gross. So we want to remember our orientation and put our new one in like that. Okay, so I'm gonna set that aside, that gross thing aside. I'm gonna take our new one, line it up, push it in. Okay, push that in now. I'm gonna push in on the sides of our glove compartment like this. All I'm doing is squeezing to get these tabs right here. I'm squeezing in, and then once it gets there, it's good. Okay, so it's not difficult. Put your stuff back in. You've just changed your cabin air filter. Probably saved yourself $40. So hope that's been helpful. All right, so this is how you replace a rear wiper blade on a 2015 Mazda CX-5. This is probably the same for most Mazda products. All right, so we're gonna start with this old blade down here. We're gonna put our fingers and spread this plastic clip out of the way like that. We're gonna set that aside. That allows our wiper arm to come up. I'm gonna rotate my wiper blade, okay, just like that. So it kind of, this, if you can kind of see this shape, this is what's holding it in there, and this is the bar. So you're rotating it until you can slip it out this way. I'm replacing with original Mazda blades because not only are they good priced, but just like with Honda products, you can just in the future just replace the rubber blade and keep the wiper arm, which is even cheaper. So wiper blades can actually be very expensive. So I'm gonna go with these, and then in the future, whenever my daughter needs new wiper blades, we'll just buy this rubber blade portion, so save some money that way. All right, so this wiper has a direction. You have this little notch, so this notch is going to be like this, where this part's going to be closer to the window, and then when it goes up, that's going to be out farther. So I'm going to start off in reverse order, kind of rotate this until I can kind of pop that down in that hole just like that. And then I want to push, rotate my wiper down, and it locks itself in. That's it. It's back installed. It's not going to come off. So that's how easy that is. I'm going to take this cap. This little partial circle has to fit in that gap. I just need to come straight in like this. Snap back on. This doesn't come up like most wipers. Most wipers you could angle up to clean under, but this one doesn't. It stays close like that. It's just the way they're made, so don't break it by trying to force it out. So that's our rear wiper. We're going to change the front driver's side wiper blade on our Mazda CX-5. This is a 24-inch Mazda blade. So I want to pop this up like that, just with my finger. Allow me to rotate this. So this kind has this, let's get the shape of this bar if you can. So it's kind of hooking it in there. So again, we're going with a new Mazda blade so that in the future, when my daughter needs new blades, all I have to do is replace the rubber portion. This had a little protective plastic coating on there. Don't forget to take that off when you put this on. It says open on there. I want to hook that right here and then snap that closed. So I'm going to come in from the bottom like this. You see that? I'm just going to put it right in there like that and slide it up like that. Now I'm going to close that. We're locked in. So that's our front wiper blade. All right, this is our front passenger side windshield wiper on our 2015 Mazda CX-5. This is an 18-inch Mazda blade. So we're gonna go ahead and grab this clip right here on this old blade. This is not a Mazda blade that's on here right now. We're gonna slide that one off. It's that hook style like that. So I'll put links in the description with part numbers and everything. So I'm going back to Mazda blades for my daughter because not only are they reasonably priced at the Mazda dealership, but also this is a blade cover. You're going to want to take that off before you put those on. You can just replace the rubber strip when they go bad, and it saves a lot of money. So this comes with this metal clip that says open. We want to open it like that. We want to slide that hook over this, and once we get it in place, we're going to snap that down. So we want to do it just like this, where we kind of angle the wiper. So see how I have my blade, and I'm going to slide it down in there. I'm going to snap this in. It's locked in. We're done. So that's how you change your wiper blades on your Mazda.